Thanks for joining.
Hello, everybody.
Look at all the smiles.
Roll call, Sheriff Metric, say aye. Yeah. Okay, that'll solve the problem. Okay.
Are we all ready then?
We are.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
all
we're
right.
Go.
All right, I'm going to call this meeting of the Police Records Management System Oversight Committee special call meeting to order. There's been a request to allow remote participation from member Fieldman under Section 7A of the Open Meetings Act. Pursuant to Section 7A of the Open Meeting Act, if a quorum of the members of the public body is physically present, as required in Section 2.01, majority of the public body may allow a member of that body to attend the meeting by other means if the member is prevented from physically attending because of employment purposes or the business of the public body. So do I have a motion to allow member Fieldman? A motion to a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, member Fieldman can participate remotely.
Appreciate the accommodation. Sorry for the inconvenience.
And let's do a roll call.
Berlin,
Here.
Bloom,
Here.
Cronin,
Here.
Fieldman,
Here.
Franz, Moranowitz, Martinovich,
Here.
McPherson, Mendrick,
Here.
Scalera, Vesta, Zerwin. Here. We have a quorum.
Okay. I have no chairman's remarks, so do we have any public comment?
We do not.
There being no public comment, we'll move on to the informational part of the meeting, which is a discussion only of purchase order and change order 19 to Intergraph Corporation doing business as Hexagon Safety and Infrastructure.
Mr. Chairman, are you looking for a motion to receive and place on file?
Yes, I am. Yes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
You want discussion on it first?
Well, I
Oh,
think
we have to.
I think we need discussion.
Yeah, I think this,
No, this is what we're discussing.
Yeah.
Yes, we need discussion. Thank you.
no problem, sir.
I'm presuming we did.
That's why we're here. Who wants to,
I guess we're all good. We're done.
who wants to start off?
I will,
Anthony?
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you,
Thank you very
please.
much. I appreciate it. Thank you all for participating in this special call. As you all know, we have been working closely with the ETSB team led by, of course, Linda Zerwin over the past few months to negotiate a new contract with Hexagon. I am pleased to announce that negotiation process is completed and the contract was approved by the ETSB board about a week or so ago. So we didn't want to wait until June, our next meeting, to share this news and information with you. And of course, we wanted to be able to share the details, but also answer any questions that the committee may have. Okay, so I'm gonna just go through at a very high level some of the highlights. Next slide of the contract. So the current contract value is $11,773,773. $773,773.22. So the new option in the form of a reinstatement covers essentially additional training, consulting time, new licensing and equipment options. This new contract renewal, of course, covers both the CAD side and the RMS side. So the items that directly impact RMS are the items I have listed here. Number one, there's a new hardware and software component. We're going to upgrade the main application to a new version called MFR later this year. Also, our NIBRS reporting tool is being upgraded. So the interfaces that are associated with the criminal stats interfaces that we have in place.
One question with the NIBRS, does this meet all the new requirements? With,
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, it does. So we've been working with some of the chiefs and others to implement the new reporting tool. We're gathering all of the data that's required, but that data isn't required to present it in the new format until the end of this year.
Correct.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, it is covered. It's a smart question. So also it covers us making some adjustments to existing licensing structure. So adding licenses, subtracting where necessary. Some additional training was added, and then the back end infrastructure, we had to update the Windows Server licensing as well. So next slide. So how does this impact the budget? So the reinstatement cost is $10,771,934. I think it's important to highlight that throughout the negotiations, and the reason why it took us probably a little longer than definitely Linda wanted for it to be, and longer than we wanted to be, because we had some really hard conversations with them about costs. Those conversations led to the reduction of their initial pricing in the amount of $476,156. So kudos to the negotiation team led by Linda, a combination of ETSB and the PRMS team to get that number down. The most significant difference in pricing is, of course, the combination of the RSA now. The RSA contract was separate from this contract. Combined the RSA makes sense for us to do it all at the same time. So there's a total of 1.5 million added, which is 1.5 over a 5-year period, which includes the RSA. There's an additional 200K here that covers new hardware, software, and licenses. Both components equal an addition of 1.7 million. That 1.7 million covers both the CAD and the RMS sides. All right, so that's it for the budget piece. Just a couple of things that I want to highlight, and these things were of course highlighted in Linda's memo letter that was sent out March 3rd. I think we attached a copy. If not, we'll make sure that we get a copy added. But this basically highlights, I think, things that are important to know about us moving forward after the contract is executed. Number one, the new contract costs. So the new contract provides RMS users with contract costs for the current life of the contract, which is important. Secondly, the intergovernment agreement that we currently have in place with the agencies will be in place until 2023. Agencies who are considering maybe moving on must provide ETSB with advance notice prior to that. This leaves ETSB at risk when we leave the contract. That we mentioned that before in previous conversation. And then a very positive thing, I believe, is that the new language actually includes language in the contract that allows for us to review the pricing on an annual basis now. So we can adjust, which is a very positive thing for us. So if for some reason an agency decides to leave, at the end of the year, we can look at the contract, renegotiate the price based on who's actually active. And then an out clause was also added, which is equally important for us to be able to get out of the contract if we have to. So those are some of the highlights of the contract and what we negotiated for moving forward. I want to give both Linda, who played a huge part in the negotiations, and Dave, who of course helped on the RMS side, to also add anything that made us.
Well, first of all, I think having Anthony on the team was a fresh set of eyes to the contract, which was really, really helpful in a lot of different areas. So, I mean, it was really a team effort. And I think the out clause and the annual review allows you to look at the licensing. So if there are agencies that want to go, because ETSB can't pay for the RMS side, this helps protect those that stay from having to pay, more than what we're showing on that breakout. So that breakout allows us to figure out what those costs are going to be for the next 5 years, which helps people plan their budgeting. That's assuming nobody buys anything else. I also think adding the RSA into the contract, that really means that this contract, with all the additions from the last amendment, is really only $200,000 more, which is pretty good. over 5 years. We were pretty happy with that, I think. So we're really, I think, between what Anthony's put together, the new executive police group, and the work with Hexagon and the new MFR software, I think we're going to find satisfied customers. We're never gonna 100% satisfy everybody, but I think that moving forward, this group of people is gonna do a really good job with the next lift, because there's gonna be substantial changes in that software based on where they're moving to. So lessons learned from the last time, I think things might work better, but I'm pleased with where we ended up and the installation for the RMS users.
Yeah, and thanks, Lynn. I want to reinforce one point that you made. And even though I highlight in here that there's an out clause, I think it is important to reinforce that Hexagon is stepping up. We have a 9-point plan to address all concerns by agencies, and we've been actively addressing those things. So I feel confident that, when it's time for renewal, that there should be very few people who are considering leaving the contract if we continue on the current path the way we are right now. So.
Right. So we have a year to kind of make a difference in people's opinion of where we're at. So before they can, under the IGA, opt out. I think they have to give notice in 2023. Is it 2024 that it's good till?
Correct. 20 is good until 2024.
So they'd have to give notice in 2023 if they didn't want to participate in 2024.
The RSA is for all 5 years of the contract.
All 5 years of the contract, yeah. And Steve Burrell is the RSA, so.
I know that gives you heartburn, Brett.
Oh, does he don't see you?
Well, because I will acknowledge that you said, we're gonna be doing this forever. And I think at this point, first of all, Steve Burrell, having police background, has been instrumental in helping Dave with workflow, because he's the guy on the other end using it, which makes a difference. But also with the amount of lift of these new programs and this new software, I think having an RSA at this point, and we're splitting the cost on the CAD side. So not all of that's going to be borne by the agencies. So we just felt that at this point, it was greater value to have them in place, particularly this one. And we did talk about the fact that if, 2 years from now, we don't have Steve and we have to start again, we'd look at that pricing too.
So do we lose any autonomy in our ability to direct his work, or since he's not working for us directly?
No, we are in constant contact with Steve, and we give him directives all the time. Now, part of it has to, of course, be approved. It has to be within the scope of his contract, right? So can't give him things that are outside of that. But as long as it's within the scope of the contract, we have the ability to.
Are we hearing any rumblings from anyone who's thinking about leaving?
I'll leave that to you, because that's your.
So, yeah, so there are, there's one agency in particular who's actually given notice to, I think, I don't know the formal process, but given notice that potentially they will leave. But I've had conversations with that agency. We're working with them directly to address all of their concerns. They claim that they're just trying to explore the options right now. So, there is one agency. The Police Chiefs Association is also just doing a review of different options out there as well, but they're in direct contact with us. So again, they've mentioned to me that it's exploratory in nature and they just want to see what's out there, but no one has given us an indication that for sure they want to be.
The nice thing about having DeltaWorks participate in the contract negotiations, and that was really helpful too, because we have other tasks. So Mike Galvin came back and kind of oversaw all of that for us. But because they're a national company, they really have their finger on the pulse of what's going on and what's out there. And so they were able to, help us with some of the areas where that Anthony pointed out in terms of cost and what was in the industry. But the other thing that Mike Galvin said that I think is important here is if we're going to do a DuPage justice information system from initiation of incident to disposition of case, any software in the country that is that complex is having the same type of issues, whether it's Square D or any of the other major providers. So the fact that Hexagon, I think, is so willing to try to work through all of those things is in our favor, because I think they know they can make it work here. They're gonna be able to do it for anybody, any large consolidated group. Anytime it's easy to do an RMS for one agency, but when you're combining information in a master index file and all the things that you want to do here for that seamless effort, so you don't have to, type an offender's name 16 times in 16 different pieces of software, it's going to be complicated. And, when we do references for Hexagon, I tell people, look, I can give you super users, I can give you resistors, I can give you passive resistors, I can give you haters. What do you want to see? There's 3,500 people using this system, and not everybody's going to be happy. And I think we find the difference between, what people were doing before in terms of how involved their reporting was, and then lessons learned from the training aspect of it, because where we see a lot of people struggle is in the training and using the system, because it is complex. Right, Charge? See,
It's not bad.
everybody on the age of 40, not bad. So I think we're in good shape. I think you've done a lot of good work there with the chiefs aligning that back up, so. But we'll see proofs in the MFR, I think.
There it is.
And that's a new component, right?
That's a new application, so it's an upgrade of the FBR,
Right.
so it replaces it.
Which seemed to be the
Which
big
is
voting
what
contention.
people wanted, right?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
There's a lot of new functionality that they've been waiting for that's in the new version. So we just have to get there. And usually those types of transitions are a heavy lift initially, but once they get comfortable with it, it'll be smooth sailing for them all.
Further discussion? Great.
So you're confident on the out clause that we're not gonna get stuck if we have a lot of users leave? That we have the flexibility to walk away with it if we have to.
I don't believe that will be the case, but I do believe that
Right, right.
if it is the case,
No, it's not either.
the new language does help us negotiate. It doesn't help us negotiate, I think, during the middle of the year, but at a renewal period, right? Isn't that when we can re-up?
I guess the question would be, do we want to, since the IGA is done in 2023 or 24, do we want to look at some sort of, should we be looking at something that binds people for the balance of the contract after that?
4
And
years,
maybe
right?
guarantees of pricing or something?
I was gonna ask that actually in regards to the IGA, so no,
Was
that
that the roll over
you,
your
it was. No, I was curious about that, if I don't know what I don't know the exact language in the IGA, but I was curious if we can get something like that, because I think that might be of benefit, if
I think
anything.
so too.
Yeah. Is that something we can maybe send to the committee, just so we can see that IGA?
Well,
We should work to get it extended as soon as possible.
right, because it takes us forever to get there, so.
Good.
Chairman Bolin, you're writing notes. Does that mean that's going back to your office? Nobody make eye
Yeah,
contact.
but no, I mean, I think it was
I'm gonna find
drafted
out.
the original IGA to begin with, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So that's a no.
When does it renew?
It's 2023.
It was, should have went through 24, right?
It's for 4 years, it either expires in 2023 or 2024, and then we have an additional 4 years on the contract. Right?
On the contract. So, yeah, so it's a year. I think it's in place until 2023.
Yeah, it's 2023.
Because the original contract was 5 years, and then when we did the amendment, we dropped it down to 3. To kind of push Hexagon to get where we needed to go, and then with the option to renew was 5. So yeah, we should start looking at it now.
We will do.
On the list.
We'll do that. Yeah. Anything else? You know,
No, but
Over
we
here.
receive that plus on file, so yeah.
just receive and place on file.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're
All
gonna
right,
motion in a
so-
second.
If it's informational, do we vote on it? I don't know.
We can.
Yeah, we
Okay.
did the
We don't
receive. and
usually,
place
but
on
if you would like to, we can.
Yeah, it's a voice.
Yeah.
It's a voice vote, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No opposed? All right, so we'll place it on file. And Okay, any old business? There being none, any new business?
Can I just say one thing? On the list of things on the table that breaks out all those costs, not every user will be paying and dividing all those because not everybody's using like a mobile responder license and things like that. So just when Sarah thought her billing was gonna be easy, I'll have to give you a list of people who are gonna get those licenses and things like that, so.
Okay, anything else? Then I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, meeting's adjourned. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Great question.